After our closed session, there were no motions or anything business coming out of our closed session. We're now going to resume our council meeting. And we will begin. Ms. Winter, please help me. We're going to move 11B off of our agenda this evening. Can you explain how we need to do that, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. In light of the timing and how long our last item took,
Yes.
administration is offering that if council wishes to postpone item 11B, the municipal land disposal update in closed session, administration is prepared to bring that report to the February 14th, 2023 regular council meeting. It's not a time sensitive item. So if council wishes to do that, I do have a postponement motion ready for council's consideration.
Okay. Let's put the motion on the screen, please. If someone wants to move that motion, we can deal with it. If they don't want to move the motion, it won't go anywhere. Councillor McCook, Kat.
I move that item 11B municipal land disposal update be postponed until the February 14th, 2023 regular council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion, Council. Seeing no discussion, I'll ask you to vote on the motion before you. Councillor Monkoff-Swain, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you, Sam. Seeing that, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. We will now continue with our agenda item, which is now back to our 6A, Committee of the Whole Recommendation to Council, Land Use Bylaw, our zoning blueprint report. Ms. Raymond, I believe you'll be presenting this evening. And let me just get your mic on there. Hang on. Oh.
Sorry.
Okay, your mic is on whenever you're ready, just so you know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. So tonight we're in front of you to provide council with a recommendation for debate and decision from the Committee of the Whole regarding the land use bylaw, our zoning bylaw blueprint report as presented. So the recommendation from the Committee of the Whole was that by the end of May 2023, administration prepare a report on options and implications related to addressing congestion of street parking and encouraging parking in garages and alleviating street congestion, limiting additional dwelling units for front attached garage product 1, limiting additional dwelling units for rear detached garage product to 2, and requiring 1B garage suite, disallowing further zero lot line homes, disallowing further tiny homes or mobile homes, adjusting the amount of parking for additional dwelling units to 1 parking stall per bedroom, and limiting the number of business-related vehicles allowed for home-based businesses. Administration has had a chance to take a look at the scope of work, and we have determined that the completion of the requested report will require external support. We're also recommending that the deadline be extended from May to August 2023 based on consultant feedback. We did do a limited expression of interest to see what that would look like from a consultant perspective. And the approximate cost would be around $41,300 plus or minus 15%, probably coming in closer to that $50,000 mark, depending on the scope of the work that is selected. So should the scope of work change through council's deliberation, we will adjust that cost to reflect the updated direction. So as I mentioned, this request was informed by consultants. So we are looking for council tonight to provide direction to us on whether or not to undertake this report and which items of those that you would like to do. So I can let legislative services maybe speak to or yourself on that procedure going forward. But I think we're looking for a motion for each item to make sure that the scope of work is totally defined, because there might be pieces that somebody might agree with and not the whole thing. And so just making sure that it's not one motion that throws that out. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Raymond. So what we're going to do is I will ask member of council to move the motion for the report, which will have the 8 items in it. And then if council agrees, I'd like to have us vote on each item of the 8. There were a couple of council members at the whole meeting who didn't want to hold up the process, but had some thoughts about the individual items. This way, it'll allow us to have one more kick at the cat in terms of what to include in the report. So this motion will be to bring a report forward based on these items down the road. Councillor Tessier, would you care to make a motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll move by that the end of May 2023, administration prepare a report on options and implications related to addressing congestion of street parking and encouraging parking in garages and alleviating street congestion. Number 2, limiting additional dwelling units. Number 3, limiting additional dwelling units for front attached garage product to 1. Number 4, limiting additional dwelling units for rear detached garage product to 2 and requiring 1 to be a garage suite. Number 5, disallowing further 0 lot line homes. Number 6, disallowing further tiny homes or mobile homes. Number 7, adjusting the amount of parking for additional dwelling units to 1 parking stall per bedroom. And the last one, number 8, limiting the number of business-related vehicles allowed for home-based businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So I'll open it up to discussion on the motion in general. And once we've done the discussion, I'll then proceed with asking council to, oh, Ms. Winter, I missed a step, didn't I? Ms. Winter, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to just go over procedurally what we're asking council do, because if council doesn't have consensus, we would have to go to a vote first. So I just want to kind of clarify the procedure. I also want to clarify that I know Councillor Tessier just moved the motion with the May 2023, and I know that Ms. Raymond had mentioned the August 2023, so whether or not council would consider that as a friendly amendment. So what we're going to be doing if full council has consensus is splitting the question for the purpose of voting. So with Councillor Tessier moving the motion, that means we only need one motion for all the items. However, council will be individually voting on each question, like of the 8, on whether or not they will be included in the report. So it's a little bit different on how we've done it in the past, as we don't need a mover for each motion.
Okay, so with that, I see Sam's hand is up. So I'll go to Sam first for general discussion on the motion. Once we have general discussions over with, I'll then move into the procedure of voting, asking council for consensus to vote on items 1 to 8 individually. Okay, Sam, you have the floor.
Yeah, just so I appreciate trying to get there procedurally. I thought we had this discussion in committee of the whole, and yes, there was some back and forth on some of them, but I think we had consensus back then that we want to report on these 8 things. So I'm just not sure why we're going through again and voting one by one on this. Can we ask the question first before we go through it? Like if we go through and have 8 votes and it's all unanimous again, and we're just wasted our time. So I'm just curious, like, can we see if we need to do that, or, and I'm not in the room, sorry, I haven't had the conversation, but it seems like a lot of extra steps when all admin is asking for is essentially 50K and a few extra months. I don't know if we need to open up the 8 things again. We had those discussions. So
I'll answer your question. A couple of councillors asked me about if they're not sure about one of the things, how do they have the chance to revisit one of these issues? I said, well, the way they do it is have the motion and then vote on each one line by line. But it requires council consensus to do that. And if we don't have consensus, I'll ask for a vote, just yes or no. And if 4 say no, we're not going to vote on line by line, then we won't. I just tried to accommodate the request of a couple of councillors who weren't sure about one of the items back in December and wanted to have a chance to talk about it tonight. So that's
okay.
how I'm doing it that way.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just, again, this is asking for information versus voting on anything. So I'll leave it there, but you'll work in the room. I'll let you carry on doing that. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McCook, followed by Councillor Van Nieuwkerk. Kat?
Thank you, Mayor. Just have some questions around what was proposed. Are you able, Ms. Raymond, to maybe just give us a few examples, high-level examples as to why the scope of the work is so large? Many of these changes were new to the bylaw not that long ago. So just wondering why trying to understand the impact of what some of these changes would be makes the scope so large.
Thank you, Councillor McCook. So, and I'll let Mr. Hipkiss talk to this a little bit more, but the reason for that is because there are actually a lot of implications that go along with the planning framework that's already been developed, and there's been significant investment into that. It's not necessarily just a simple pros and cons kind of research. There's a lot of different cascading effects that we might not necessarily know about that we do need to do additional research into, as well as doing some of that best practice research, like, you know, what would be the purpose of limiting that additional dwelling unit for front attached garage product one? Like, what would be the implications of that on all of these different things? There's a lot of different plans to consider as it relates to that, from the municipal development plan all the way down to the land use bylaw. We're also looking at, say, the age-friendly strategy or the affordable housing strategy. Like, there's a lot that goes back into this one, and we want to make sure that we're able to fully give council that understanding about what this would actually mean to make this change. What would we need to change, say, back to the social master plan, if we're going to limit the amount of dwelling units? So if we were going to limit the amount of dwelling units, it's more than just that density conversation. It ties back to a whole range of things. And we just want to give council that considered opinion. I'll let Mr. Hipkiss talk if I missed anything on that.
No, I think you've covered it all, but I guess if you want more detail, I could go into it.
No, that's okay. Thank you. Mr. Raymond did a good job of covering it. And then I guess due to the potential cascading effects and everything is why the scope of work could not be completed until August.
That's correct. Through the expression of interest, it was expressed that May was not going to be enough time for everybody to kind of get running, and we're probably looking at July, but then with council schedule and everything else, we're probably, and we also need to vet it to make sure that whatever we're putting in front of you, we've also had a chance to review. So it would be back in time for council when they return back from summer break, would be that time frame. Otherwise, it's just really pushing and stressing that time frame and not allowing any time for review from administration's perspective on that.
Okay, thank you. That's it for now, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor. Councilman Newkirk, followed by Councillor Barnhart. Steve?
Yeah, thank you. Not wanting to revisit 8 different votes tonight. For me, we're looking at something we push forward from committee of the whole, looking for information. So the question tonight for me is, do you want information or not? Right. And so if you start striking down items off this list here tonight without even getting information on it, that means that you're not willing to listen to things or think about other things or open your mind to, you know, the pros and cons of others. So I would just implore everyone to be all the way in or all the way out on this one and keep it simple. That's where my head's at. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate that. Not a problem at all with that opinion. I appreciate that. Councillor Barnhart. Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Councillor Van Newkirk. That's as well what I was going to ask the question. I did not intend it by, myself voting that this come here from committee of the whole, that meant I agreed with everything. I want the information so I know whether in fact these are going to cause any concerns in the community, if the developers are going to be delayed, all of that. So by saying yes to this report, I am not saying I agree with the direction here. So I just wanted to clarify. If I've got that wrong, tell me now. I'm okay with a report for information for the reasons Councillor Van Newkirk said.
No problem. No other questions or on the motion at hand? Well, by the sounds of the room, I don't think we have consensus to tear it apart line by line. Actually, just show an idea of consensus. Anybody willing to do it line by line individually? Or Councillor Tessier, you have a comment?
Sorry to interrupt that. I just wanted to talk about timelines after we're done figuring out what we're going to do.
Yeah, Tomlin's on the motion.
Yeah.
itself. That's fine. We can come back to that for sure. In case you want to change your motion, you have that opportunity yourself. Is there a consensus to look at line by line or vote 1 through 8? If I'm seeing no consensus, Madam Clerk, we can simply move on the motion as it is, all 8. I believe that's the procedure I can follow. Thank you. I offered the request that was made to me, and that's fine. We'll move forward. I'm happy with that. So, Councillor Tessier, would you care to add additional comment to your motion?
So my only worry with the timeline is just we've already done a whole year of review and stuff, and then it's another construction season and more stages moving forward to, that we're kind of trying to change in these motions or get information. So by the time we get information, it'll be another year. Or were the external consultants was it just one or all of them were pretty firm on August? I understand the timelines, like, I would love to see it in June so we could sit on it, would be kind of a good compromise so we can actually read it over, because it's going to be, I'm guessing, a decent sized report like the last one was. And then I have a follow-up question to that as well.
Hi, to the chair. Thanks for the question, Councillor Tessier. Basically, to answer it, all the consultants were pretty much in the same time frame. A lot of them needed the additional time in order to properly collect the data and to have a professional recommendation to provide within the report. So that was kind of one of the key factors that we were faced or challenged with, was if we compress that timeline, we have a higher potential of having a report that may be skewed. And we want to make sure that we have as much information to you as possible to move forward with.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Obviously, it's a big bylaw that we're looking at. Is there going to be public consultation again for this report?
To the chair, thanks, Councillor Tessier. Some of them are, but some of them are limited on what their plans are. So different strategies are being looked at, and that's part of what administration is looking to evaluate, is how to best go about looking at different data sets and data collection to get that information to you. Some of them might be a limited sample or might be limited to different areas depending on, obviously, what was selected. So coming into this with me with such an open or broad scope, there was different sections of it that require potential engagement. And so with having everything on the table, I would say that different strategies of data collection are imposed, and there is the potential for some engagement.
Okay, thank you for that answer. My only concern here is I really want this report to be, obviously, in the previous report, we compared a lot of communities and got a ton of data, right? So I'm hoping this report's going to be getting some good look at like what Beaumont would look like if these were implemented, type of thing, right? So I just don't want to report over a report. That would be my only concern if I'm reading something that we just saw last year. So just looking for clarification on what this report's kind of going to look like that's going to differ from the information I have on my other report, I guess.
Ms. Raymond?
Through the mayor to Councillor Tessier, I think the biggest thing with this report that differs from the other one is that this one's really looking at that feasibility and those implications as we talked about through the various committee of the whole meetings. The other report was looking at fairly narrow scope, about a few different items, had a lot of public engagement stuff, but didn't really provide an actual recommendation about what the best way forward was what I found out of that report. You're kind of left going, okay, what happens next? And I think that there's more work that needs to be done because it is such a broad scope that you're asking about, but it's also just has a lot of things to consider. So I think you'll see that there'll be a concise recommendation about maybe, you know, for these reasons, this is why we would recommend that you change this, or maybe something is warranted for limiting this, or different things that might come out of that. Or, you know, I'll pick on tiny homes for a moment. Maybe Beaumont doesn't necessarily need to do tiny homes to get to the density that we're looking for. Maybe that's something where that would come back as a green checkbox or something, but there would be very clear recommendations to council about which way you want to go. And then you would then be able to debate that report and then direct us to prepare those amendments, because this isn't going to just be amendments to the land use bylaw. This will be amendments to probably most of the planning framework, which has been a considerable investment in staff time and dollars provided by the municipality. So we want to make sure that you're very clear on what those implications are. And then the other one, you know, for instance, if you were to say limit the rear detached dwelling product and you want one of those to be a garage suite, Well, you're probably going to need more lanes than you already have, which have impacts to developers and other things like that. So those are things that we just want to make sure that's what the report is going to draw out and have that. And then when we're looking at that public engagement, it won't be that broad-based public engagement that we did the last time around. It'll be more targeted stakeholder engagement, looking at that. Whereas we were looking before at people's lived experiences, what they thought about zero lot line and other stuff like that. But we would do more, developer stuff and, talking with, say, the housing authorities and different things like that. So that's a bit more on a different end of the spectrum in terms of that public engagement. But does that answer some of your questions?
Yes, 100%. And that's exactly what I was hoping that we're going to get from this report. So that's perfect. Yeah, thank you.
You good right now?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Van Newkirk, Steve?
Yeah, something just twigged for me when Councillor Tessie was speaking with Ms. Raymond, and the motion doesn't actually state the word recommendations in it. Do we need to add that? So right now it says administration prepare a report on options and implications. Inherently, it doesn't say that we're looking for recommendations there. Administration is understanding that, but it doesn't actually say that. So just maybe look back to Councillor Tessier, who got us to this point. Was the intent to provide recommendations, or was it just to have options and implications? Like to the point earlier, wording matters and the direction matters, and yeah.
Councillor Tessier, would you care to respond?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Van Newkirk. That's a good point. We might as well report on options, implications, and recommendations.
So do you wish to amend your own motion, which is fine, just so we're
Yep.
clear?
Yep, that works.
So you'll add the words and recommendations after the word implications?
I'm not super keen on changing the date, but from what I understand, it would be a rush product, and that is something we don't want with such a huge bylaw. So I get that. I'm not super happy about it, but it is what it is.
So are you prepared then to maybe adjust your date on your motion, having said that?
Yes.
Because you're adding recommendations now too, which is another level to the report, which is good point, Steve, on that. So Councillor Tessier, if you agree with your own motion there, it's up to you to change the date as you see fit.
And sorry, Mr. Raymond, can I just ask one question that you said in the comment? You said if we were to change the additional dwelling unit for rear detached garage to 2 and 1 would have to be a garage, we'd have to add a lane. What does that mean?
Well, if you're going to have more, right now, the integrated neighborhood district is probably the one that would be the one that was most tailored probably towards the new land use bylaw and the innovative kind of housing forms and whatnot that we were choosing, and to have that flexibility. I think if you're going to require one of your suites to be a garage suite, if they are going to have one, then you're going to need a lane for that. But obviously you're going to have a lane too on the rear detached garage. So I'm just going to back myself up there to it, being later today. You're not going to have a rear detached garage with no access either. So
You can't have two
there's
lanes?
that.
Can't have 2 lanes?
No,
Okay.
no, usually you don't want double frontage or 2 access points on a residential lot. It's not usually the best. I do have one thing that I would like to add just as a point. There's no funding source associated with this at this point. So that would be something too that would need to be added to this motion as well, is that funding source. So we're looking for about $50,000 to be funded out of the planning reserve.
Thank you for that. I'm now 100% good. Mayor, thank you.
Okay, so you're okay with the August 2023, just so we're clear and that you're clear as well.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Winter, administration, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Councillor Tessier, would you be okay, as Ms. Raymond stated, we would need a funding source to be able to move forward? If I put in number 9, that would identify doing a budget amendment. Thank you.
I'm assuming pay as you go, but we'll have to figure that out at some point. Up to finance to figure that out. Or reserves, yeah, which is fine. We'll let Ms. Winter just adjust your motion in a moment here. Councillor Tessier, then we'll have you just simply confirm it's good the way it is. Councillor Barnhart, do you have a comment?
Just while there's time, thank you, Mayor and Ms. Raymond, when, during this period of time, and I know there's projects and development going on, does this put any of it in jeopardy the longer that takes? Like, you know, are people waiting to hear this, or they're able to proceed and be grandfathered in until any changes are made, if there were to be any?
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Barnhart, they would proceed under the rules that are in place at the time that they make their application. So if they were to submit that now, before the land use bylaw had changed, they would be permitted to proceed under today's rules, or whenever they submit that before it
Just
changes.
wanted to make sure. I thought so. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Tessier, would you just have a look at that addition to your motion, and if you concur with it, I think it's time for the question, we'll vote. And then I think we're done with the questions. I'll ask one more question round just in case, but can you confirm you're okay with that wording?
Yes, Mayor, and thank you, Legislative Services.
Okay, perfect. I see no need to read the entire motion. It's been there in front of us. Any last questions from council before I ask for the vote on this motion? Seeing none, council, would you please vote on the motion before you? Councillor McCook, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you, councillor. That carries unanimously. Thank you, council. Moving on our agenda, we now move to 6D, Councillor McCook, motion following notice, consideration for establishing a municipally controlled corporation to operate a medical clinic. When you have the motion on the screen, I'll ask you to move it accordingly. Councillor McCook.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that by the end of the second quarter of 2023, administration prepare a report on the potential for the city of Beaumont to adopt the City of Cold Lake's approach for establishing a local municipally owned medical clinic, and that the report include an overview of considerations and potential next steps related to exploring the feasibility of such an initiative.
You care to make any comments to your motion?
Sure, yeah, please. First off, I just thought that this would be a good motion to bring forward to at least start the conversation. Secondly, ameliorating and looking at health options for our city is one of our pillars in our strategic plans, so this certainly fit. Obviously, there's a lot of work ahead and there's a lot of work to go to explore exactly what this looks like, what that would entail, and in our community. But this at least starts the conversation. Healthcare is obviously struggling in our province, and I think that anything that we can do to bring more services to our residents is a big win for our community. As this is all very preliminary, I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions stemming from the initial report. So I hope you'd support this notice of motion so we can get the report back and determine the feasibility of this and what the next steps look like. Cold Lake is actually holding a public hearing on this tonight. So it will be interesting to see what has come from that. And we'll see how things go for them as well, which will help us determine next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. I think it's a great idea. I'm looking forward to supporting this motion. Any further comments from anybody from council? Councillor Miller, Ashley?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor McCook. I will definitely support this motion. I'm just wondering if it's worth amending to also have them come back with our current statistics in Beaumont, stating our percentage of population that does have a family doctor. I know that Cold Lake has prepared all of those numbers to their residents before they look into this. So it just helps kind of the cause to be able to say that, you know, this is the amount of population that has one, doesn't have one, and those optics. So that's my feedback, is I would like to see those numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Councillor McCook, would you care to make an amendment to your motion?
Yep. Or
Oh,
go ahead.
Mr. Schwartz, CEO Schwartz, please.
Yeah, completely shooting from the hip here. I'm not sure where they got those numbers. I'd certainly like to look into that as well. So first, so what I'm thinking is maybe we don't require the amendment, or we put "and if possible," because I'm surprised that anybody would release that type of data.
Yeah, they're
how
actually
would
right
they
on
know?
their website. Yeah.
But I wonder if they didn't do it through some voluntary public engagement or something along those lines. Because I'm looking at Councillor Barnhart when we were trying to figure out day homes and placements for childcare, and they were saying, well, what are the percentages now? Well, we don't know. Some people register, some don't. Like it'd be, I don't know if that's public
Mhm.
information, but we can certainly look.
Mhm.
It's an interesting question.
I guess it's public in Cold Lake, but maybe.
I
Not sure.
I certainly think it's pertinent information, whether that be conducted by a survey or what, not my, direction to make that call, but I would like to see, the numbers. Absolutely. Yeah.
CO Schwartz.
Yeah, Ms. O'Neill was just sharing with me that it's on their municipal census, so they likely asked that question on their census.
Maybe I should clarify. They are an example of what, is. They are an example. If there is a way to gather data to show that, I don't know what that looks like. But
Yeah,
that would be my request.
And we'll look into it for sure. If it's on their municipal census, then that was an extra question that council added to the census. So it's not a norm, but we'll see. Maybe there is another way to find that data.
Do we need to adjust the motion or are we okay the way it is?
I would ask admin
Councillor
that, yeah.
McCook?
If-
Okay, I'm getting, sorry. Ms. Bujaya.
I think that we understand what council is looking for here and will endeavor to bring as much data as we can to help answer this question. My understanding from looking at the motion as written was that it was implicit that we would need to sort of build a case whether this is something we should pursue. Also, I just want to note this would likely be a long process. So there would be a number of steps and investigations and fact checking, data checking before we were really ready to make a decision, or before I think council would be in a position to make a decision of this kind of investment and this kind of endeavor, because it is a fairly complicated and complex process.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if Councillor Miller's okay, to just leave it as is for the moment, just so we get an understanding. This is more of an understanding of the process and kind of what it would look like to venture down that road. I think if the report comes back and council is prepared to really go down that path, then potentially additional data would be important to have. However, I think at this point, we're very aware of the challenges in all of the communities, including ours, in regards to healthcare and accessibility of healthcare. So this just, like I said, gets the ball rolling and starts the conversation. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I'll probably ask the question later on if we do go down the road of actually getting there. But I'll just stop there. I'm good with it for now.
You're good?
Thanks for bringing it forward, Councillor McCook.
Okay, no problem. Councilman Newkirk, Steve, you have a question? You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and just thanks to Councillor McCook for watching what's going on around us and bringing an idea here. I think we need to do more of that as a world and check in on things from communities that are trying to find novel solutions to common problems. We need to start somewhere with our health services pillar. And, if this is the start, so be it. To be very clear, this is an information item. There is a lot of work that would need to be done before we would get anywhere close to creating a municipal corporation and all those things. So, for anyone that's listening now or listening in the future or a recorded event, this is an information item only at this point. And just to put a pin in Councillor Miller's thoughts, I do think that the local environmental scan is a necessary first step here. Something as simple as here's how many doctors we have, here's patient load, here's, any wait times, anything we can get on that as a baseline, I think is going to be crucial information to start even having a discussion on this being a solution, because we need to define the problem, or we have to figure out if there is a problem, define it, quantify it, and all of those things, before we start throwing solutions together. But I'm happy to start here. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor McCook-Swain. Sam, you have a question?
Yeah, a couple of comments and then a question. I get the intent here. I understand, we all discussed this as part of our strategic plan about some sort of medical facility. The way that I read this is basically just asking us how to set up a municipal corp. And, you know, we could turn that around pretty quickly. That's pretty straightforward. I don't think this is the best way to go about what we're actually trying to achieve here. Ultimately, council's goal is to figure out a way to get some sort of medical clinic here. Mayor, you've met with the minister on this, well aware of all the asks that we have, right? But ultimately, you know, a medical clinic, you know, that's more of a private developer conversation. For me, I would much rather, when we get into operations budget discussion, is like if we wanted to get serious about this, then for me, I would rather just provide some funding for an FTE for economic development to just go after this and look at all options, including a municipal corp, including chasing down, shaking every tree that we can find. So I'm not sure what this report is gonna give us, other than saying this is how you set up a municipal corp, and we know that already. So I think it'll be tough for administration to look at, you know, an overview of considerations and next steps along this line. So for me, I just, again, I agree with the intent, but I think it's not the right way to go about this. I think we need to be broader. Right now, there isn't someone in administration who's looking at this, right? There's a whole bunch of priorities that we're throwing on them. If we're serious about wanting to get a medical clinic here, then let's give administration some budget over the next couple of years to, you know, give them a job, and your job is to bring someone in. So I would much rather do that than have administration pull information around a municipal corp. What we can learn a lot from Councillor McCook's point that it's going through the public hearing today. We'll hear a lot from that, and we can learn from their information. So for me, that's where I would rather go. And that's what I'll be bringing forward at budget time. But yeah, so I don't support the motion. I'd rather to see how that plays out, and I'd rather give administration the resources to actually look at this one sole large problem that we have, and spend a couple of years trying to attract what we need here. So I don't support it, and I'll just leave my comments there.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Van Newkirk, please, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the view that Councillor Monkoff-Sway brings to this, and I can definitely see where he's going with that, and I can see merit. Maybe just a question for administration. We did a strategic plan. We have a pillar, healthcare services that meet the needs of our growing population. Council wants to start somewhere. You know, this has been put forward as a potential start. Maybe just a very simple question to administration: is this the best place to start? Or, you know, should we explore dedicated resources and take that approach, which Councillor Monkoff-Swain is presenting? This isn't about whose idea is best for me. It's about like, where is the best jumping off point for this from administration? So maybe some comments from admin might help me out. Thank you.
CO Schwartz.
I used the term shoot from the hip a few minutes ago. Well, watch out, because that's what's coming here. It's really difficult for me to weigh in right now. This is a councillor's notice of motion that I think should be debated and directed from council. And I really don't want to dive into the middle of that when I don't have any data. You're right, the strategic plan talks about healthcare. We're exploring different avenues of community health. The meeting we had with the minister last week was looking at a model like, for instance, what Covenant's doing around that one-stop shop. That may or may not come out of this type of report. I'm not entirely certain what problem Coal Lake was trying to solve and whether it's the same as ours. So you know, I don't think it's going to be wasted work. It's something that's interesting to map out the process, and then I think we'd be able to answer the question. You know what? This is how you do it, and yeah, not right now. We're going to go a different road. I should have been a politician with that answer, right?
So you have your answer, Steve? Go ahead.
Yeah, and I appreciate you trying to do a dance there, and I think you did well. then that brings me down to timing. That just bumps into my head right now because, you know, if council chooses to support the motion and starts here tonight, and then, you know, and then we hear from another councillor at operational budget time that, you know, we want to really focus efforts and, you know, I don't need to reiterate what Councillor Malkoff-Swain says. Then we, you know, then at that point, we may be talking about conflicting work direction for administration. So that I'm just chewing on in my head for a second, and I just wanted to share that thought. So, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Barnhart, and then I'll go to the question if no one else wants to speak. Kathy?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor McCook. I appreciate you know, looking at the big picture might be the more ideal way to go in terms of healthcare. It's a big issue in our province, especially here as well. But I think Councillor McCook's onto something here. I think looking at a best practice that may be happening or evolving in another community, seeing what we can learn from it. I don't think there's any harm done. I think our CAO has said that this is of interest as well to the administration to find out just what are the, you know, what is the potential here of having a corporation that could run health. It's not, in my mind, an economic development strategy. It's more of a healthcare strategy. And I was looking for strategies in the budget that came forward because this was one of our priorities when we sat down and did our strategic plan. So I will vote for it. I think this will give us information from which we can then make other decisions. So I will be voting in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Miller. Ashley, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks for the discussion. Sam, you know, you almost had me thinking the opposite way there. There's a good discussion. I didn't quite hear from Mike, our administration, that it's necessarily going to be a big resource, you know, factor just to prepare this report. I think when we get back to the questions that I know I'll have when we actually look at this, you know, budget wise, if that's what we do, that'll be a different story. But I think at this point, the more information we have, the better. And if it's not something that's going to, you know, tie the hands of what we currently have going on, I don't see a problem with it. I will be voting in favor for this.
Thank you, Councillor. So no one else requests to speak. I will call for the motion. I'll call for the vote on the motion before you. Please vote. Councillor Malkoff-Swain, how do you vote?
Opposed.
Thank you. That carries 6-1. Thank you, Council. Appreciate that. Next on our agenda is 6E, Councillor Barnhart, motion following notice financial support for regional affordable housing initiative. I'll ask you to move your motion when it's on the screen and then speak to it if you'd like to. You're welcome. Yeah, you have a red light now.
There we go. Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you, Mayor. So I was going to read it from my screen where I could see it, but something decided to pop up, so I'm going to have to turn around and try to read. That as one of 7 member municipalities comprising the Leduc Regional Housing Foundation, the City of Beaumont contributes funding in the amount of $84,275 to be funded from the Financial Stabilization Reserve for the purpose of supporting the LRHF's proposed Gates 2 affordable housing project, pending the LRHF approval of this project through the Provincial Affordable Housing Partnership Program and the Federal Rapid Housing Initiative.
Thank you, Councillor. Please speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I want to apologize that it's coming forward in such a speed at which it did come forward. And I just wanted to mention again, and I think in the notes that accompanied this notice of motion, it did speak to it, that the Leduc Regional Housing Foundation, that I represent the City of Beaumont as the chair on that board, we did not get a lot of advance notice. We've been actually planning to have an affordable housing project come forward for support from municipalities for at least 5 years. And we did try once before and it didn't get funded because we didn't have additional municipal contribution. But over the Christmas holidays this year, which is somewhat unfair, the federal government and the provincial government announced 2 grant initiatives, and they gave us very short timelines. January 11th was when the application had to be into the provincial government, and they had made it quite plain that if we did not have municipal support, 1 or 7 municipalities, we were not going to get that grant. And as it turned out, when we had our board meeting and found out about this, the City of Leduc who's one of the 7 municipalities, made it a priority for their council. And they said, well, we'll front end this so we can make the deadline on January 11th. So the City of Leduc Council approved $500,000, which they're hoping they get us to share with them in that $500,000, which would put us in really good place in terms of getting the grant. The federal money that we're looking for is approximately $6 million, I think is the amount. And we're looking at the amount that we would be needing. Sorry, the provincial amount is 1.7 million and the federal is 4.8. And what we're putting in from the foundation, and when I say we, I mean us, Beaumont, as well as the other 6 municipalities, from reserves, we voted to put in $1 million as well. What it would get us is an affordable housing project in the city of Leduc. And of course, one of the questions I asked was, well, when does Beaumont get more affordable housing? We already have some. We have Beauregard Manor and Villa Beauregard here in Beaumont already. Our waiting list for 1-bedroom apartments right now in Beaumont is sitting at 36 individuals, which is pretty high, very high. And in Leduc, it's up at their number like 72. So we're next, I think, in terms of if we can get additional funding and support to build in Beaumont. So I don't want to belabor this. I know the information is there. Councillors may have additional questions. I did want to say the latest update on other municipalities who have voted in favor of this project. Warburg, as I said, the city of Leduc and Kalmar so far are supporting it based on the regional assessment. So we are now asking that question here, the equalized assessment, excuse me, asking whether Beaumont would consider supporting this project.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion. Questions for Councillor Barnhart? I can't see you, Sam, physically, so do you have a question on this one?
Nope, Councillor Barnhart did a great job and pretty straightforward for me. I'll be supporting it.
Thank you. Councillor McCook, can I see your hands up?
Thank you, Mayor. More just a comment. Obviously a strong supporter of this notice of motion. I think that's one of the biggest obstacles to a lot of lower income residents in our community is obviously housing. And I also appreciate Councillor Barnhart giving us the information as to where Beaumont sits and also advocating at the table for Beaumont, and hopefully Beaumont is next. Thank you.
Great. Seeing no further comments or requests to speak, I'm happy to then ask council now to vote on the motion before you. Sam, you already said, but I'll just ask for your official vote, please.
In favor.
Thank you. Council, that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Next on our agenda is, we've gone through all of number 6. Here we are. Perfect. We're now into councillor inquiries. We've gone through A and B already. Councillors did receive their information in a previous email from administration. Are there any councillor inquiries this evening to be brought forward? Seeing none. Oh, there is one. Okay, I see it there now. Councillor Miller, please.
Sure. My inquiry is on sanitary sewer cleanout installations. Please provide information on the process for sanitary sewer cleanout installations by the developer/contractor and the city of Beaumont, the specific code requirements and costs of the installations, and the plan to restore properties to pre-construction conditions.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any further councillor inquiries this evening? Seeing none, I'm seeing no response. On to CEO update. Mr. Schwartz, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, the chair, the rest of the council, and those that are watching online. Got a number of things to rattle through here, but I'll be as quick as I can. And as usual, we'll send out the paper copy tomorrow because there's some numbers. Being it's a year end, we're rolling up a lot of stuff, right? So I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you. But we'll begin in community and social development. As you're aware, we're developing an EDI framework, and we've received the phase 1 report from the consultants that we've hired. We're going back out for further engagement the week of February 13th to the 17th. And as I reported previously, we had hired an EDI coordinator. That person has joined our social development service team. The Legacy Project, January 30th, 2023. Again, this is community and social development. It's the 5th month of bringing intergenerational community members together. This month's theme is family, and we'll have approximately 50 community members as participants. The theme for February will be cultural awareness, and Phyllis Gladue will come to facilitate. Recreation, as I reported, the numbers were extremely high. In the first 3 weeks of January, the BSRC has signed up more than 625 new memberships. And as such, the fitness center is really, really busy. Infrastructure. Transit, interesting. There has been an observed improvement in the Beaumont ridership in regional transit in Q4 of 2022. There's actually been a 51% increase in ridership compared to Q4 of 2021. We believe this is due in large part to the UPass program, which supports the student riders. So that's good news. We're meeting with our Leduc County and Leduc City on Thursday to start conversations on a sub-regional model. So we'll keep you in the loop. Utilities, and we reported on this in budget, obviously a significant rise in price of natural gas. Effective January 1st, we transitioned our natural gas agreement to a new retailer. We signed a 3-year natural gas contract where we go out and buy blocks of at optimal prices. So our new contract provides favorable rates, and the batteries go in here, which provide Beaumont improved future service. For those interested, we use about 35,000 gigajoules per year of natural gas, which is roughly around $500,000 per year. Solid waste, annual Christmas tree roundup, picked up 250 trees. Snow clearing, as you can see on social media, are doing an extremely good job of getting everything done. We plan to should have all residential snow removal later this week. There's a few locations that because people hadn't moved their vehicles, so we've got to go back, but the crews will return to those areas next week to clear them and then revisit some priority 3 areas that were cleared prior to the RV park. Skate loop is flooded, but it's still a little rough. So we need to do some more work on it. And we're certainly going to do that. The warmer weather obviously creates challenges for making ice. Ledge and legal services, and we've reported on this once already. This is a great initiative. The City of Beaumont has partnered with Strathcona County for a community mediation society to offer resources and services that aid residents in resolutions of their disputes. I don't imagine we have any residents in Beaumont that have disputes with their neighbors, but if they do, things like noise and pets and snow removal for their neighbors, not for the city. We've also have a web page of resources and promoted the service through our media releases and social media channels. Planning development. The City of Beaumont processed 739 development permits in 2022. Our 5-year average is 683. That's an 8.2% increase over 5 years. The 10-year average is 653, which represents 13.2% increase in permits. I know it's a lot of data, but if you look at it, it's a lot of growth, and it's just going on and on. It's not even been 5 years, it's been 10 years. Total housing starts in 2022 is 254, 184 of those being single family. City's 5-year average is 223. Total construction value or building permit value for the city was $140 million. Last year, which is a 64% increase and a 61% increase over the 5-year average. There's a bunch of numbers I'm going to show you that'll break that down. Planning process, 14 subdivision applications in all areas of Beaumont. If I recall, Kendra, we had subdivisions in every single area of our city last year. Wow. 5-year average is 8. So we were 14, so that's significant. Currently, there are 370 lots, which is a healthy inventory representing a 1.5 years supply. This is a 55% increase in subdivision applications over 2021, which at that point was our busiest year. We have seen some lower rates of development agreement executions compared to subdivision applications in 2022, but that number is to increase in 2023 as the development plans move to construction. It's just a matter of the bulk. Endorsement is the final stage in subdivision processes where a developer has met their obligations and applies to land titles to register the subdivision and create individual lots. The number was higher in 2022 as developers are eager to bring new lots online, and our inventory was lower than market demand. As you see, we've caught up to that. Our planning is, we'll be participating as a panelist in a couple conferences this year. And we've been doing that on a fairly regular basis due to the innovative approach of our land use bylaw. I know you saw some feedback today, or I don't know if council has seen it yet from UDI that talks about our land use bylaw and the work that the city is doing in challenging the status quo of land use planning. It's a pretty obviously robust document, but it's also ahead of its time. From protective service, fires, municipal enforcement completed 1,160 totals. He didn't even smile. Sam, go to the beach. 1,100 because it's like what, 3 in the afternoon there or 4 in the afternoon, something like that.
My internet is skipping out right now. That's why I'm struggling. I'm texting people to see if it's better, but the internet is slowing down. So whatever you said, I'm sure was hilarious and good job.
Okay, thanks, Sam. I think municipal enforcement completed 1,160 total files last year. It's an increase of 31% over 2021. They issued 1,167 combined violations, both provincial and bylaw. And out of that, there were 316 warnings, so about 25% were the warnings. And if we could have a picture up there, did you have a chance to load that picture, Charlene? Something that I'll talk about strategic initiatives first. Broadband, 3 crews are currently installing fiber optic infrastructure on the west side of Beaumont. Then the telecommunications hut at the BSRC is in place and on 625. And if you drive by it, you will see that it is down to a bunch of chunks of concrete that will be pulled out and backfilled here this week, and then that property is gone. So good. Well done. That's been a long time coming. And that is my update for the day. Sorry to drop that on you at the last second. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that very much. Next on our agenda are notice of the motion. I'm not aware of any notice of motion being brought this evening. Seeing none coming up the last moment, I'm assuming heads up before, nothing happened. Appreciate that. And then we are into our closed session. We've already had one. We delayed one till February 14th, and we have one on consent. So with that, seeing no further need for discussion, it's been 3 hours and a bit. I want to thank you for your attention this evening. We covered a lot of good ground this evening. Sam, enjoy your day. It's now your day there, I guess. So enjoy the day. Thanks for being with us. Thank you all, administration and council. And with that, we are adjourned at 9:07. Thank you.